Hello readers, I'm Amy and today I'm going to do the mid-year freakout tag, and I'm also just gonna kind of wrap things up for mid-year. I have some stats for you. Before we get started, I do want to talk about my book planner. So it's actually right here. I got the Always Fully Booked planner by Little Inklings. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've had a book planner from her before and I really loved it, and I just hadn't picked up another one since then. But I wanted to try going for it again, and I haven't been using it. I have a history of being awful with physical planners. I love them. I think they're gorgeous. I want to use them all the time, but I just do not keep up with them. But it's a book planner, so I really want a book planner. So what I have actually ended up doing is I am recreating the book planner in Adobe InDesign with Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign and all of those, because I do design work now. And even whenever I'm not doing work, I love just designing for fun. So that's what I've been doing. And so I can actually include screenshots and inserts of my InDesign version of this planner, which I am doing much better at keeping up with because I can just type things in. And as much as I love art, I just don't really sit down to physically draw anymore. So, hey, I draw vectors. But let's go ahead and go through the questions for the mid-year book freakout. I will try and find the original creator and tag them down below. First question is, how has your 2023 reading year gone so far? I would say it's been hit and miss, honestly. With everything that I went through at the end of last year, I feel like this year just started off really slow. I wasn't really finding my groove at the beginning of the year, but as the year has gone on into summer, it's been getting so much better and I've been doing so much more reading. By my math so far, I really need to double check my math before I put this up because it's saying that I've read 40 books, but I know I've done more than that. And on Storygraph, I've done 60. So I'm gonna have to check over some of these stats before I post this video so I can have the correct screenshots going up at least. But this second quarter of the year has definitely been going better than the first quarter, so things are looking up. I read a lot of books in June. That included comic books, so it was stuff that was a little bit shorter, but I think that those comic books really helped get me going with reading, so kudos to Jessica Jones for the awesome story, and those comics had some really awesome artwork. Next question is, what is the best book you have read so far in 2023? So the planner that I use and that I've been recreating actually has, I don't know what you call them, but whenever people bet on sports and you've got the different spots that people are in and then they compete against each other for points. I don't know if it's called a tier or something, but in my planner it's labeled Battle of the Books. So for Battle of the Books, I have been putting in my favorite book that I read each month and then pitting them against each other. And so far, The Weight of Blood is still winning. There's been a couple of times when I'm like, do I like this other book better? I don't know, but between Remnant Population and The Weight of Blood, that was the hardest decision to make. Remnant Population, you have this old woman who's supposed to leave her planet because the corporation that she works for is moving everybody out, and she's like, no, I don't want to go. I'm old, I've lived my life, I'm staying here. And it was a phenomenal book. And then we have The Weight of Blood, which is a Carrie retelling, but with the race element added, which I already loved Carrie, and The Weight of Blood just took that story and made it even better. So it was really close. One's more fun, sci-fi, space, great characters, and then the other one was definitely, Weight of Blood is a very heavy read, but it was hard to pick between the two. But I would say that Weight of Blood so far this year is my favorite book. Best sequel that I have read so far this year. I I haven't done a ton of sequels. I read The Secret of Jaipur, which is the second book in the Jaipur trilogy, starting with The Henna Artist, which I loved. And Secret of Jaipur was fine. I read Assassin of Reality. I reread both The Henna Artist and Vita Nostra in order to read the sequels to them, and Assassin of Reality was all right. It's still a very confusing series. I couldn't begin to tell you what the Vita Nostra series is about. I just know that I really like it. Yeah, those are the only sequels that I've read so far, and they're kind of tied. So I really can't tell you which one was my favorite between the two. A new release I have not read yet, but want to. I believe I actually don't have an answer for that. So I have this section of most anticipated books of the year, and so far, all of the books that have been released so far this year that were on my anticipated list and that I have also pre-ordered, I have finished reading. So I guess I would say between the ones that I've pre-ordered for the second half of the year, I'll pick a most anticipated so I can at least have an answer to the question. But the three other books that I have pre-ordered are He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan, Evil Eye by Itaf Rum, and Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. Between those three, I think Evil Eye is definitely the one I'm most looking forward to. A Woman Is No Man was just so good and great at looking at this culture and this family that's living in it, and like the differences between cultures, and there was the feminist angle. It was so good. And Black Sheep I'm also really looking forward to, but also Rachel Harrison's Such Sharp Teeth was a bit of a lukewarm read for me, so I would say Evil Eye is the one that I'm most looking forward to at this point. But it's not released yet. Next is biggest disappointment of 2023 so far. That is a very easy answer for me. 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Agustina Bastarrica. It just didn't do it for me. Tender as the Flesh was so good. It's one of my most popular videos on my channel is my review of that book. And it was so good. And then 19 Claws and a Blackbird, it's like 19 or 20 short stories. Some of the stories were really interesting, but most of them just, I didn't understand what she was trying to say, I guess. I wasn't sure if she was going for a literary angle with the stories, or if she was trying to go for like a low shock. It started off really strong because the first like 2 sentences in the first story are talking about how dentures fell from the sky, and then the body followed. And that was such a strong start. And then the whole rest of that story, I'm like, what's the point? What are you trying to say? Like, Tender as the Flesh had so much to say, and I feel like these stories outside of child abuse had absolutely nothing to say. And it wasn't what I was expecting. I did like some of the stories, but it was far from what I expected it to be, unfortunately. And it sounds like I'm not the only one feeling that way. This book seems to really be all over the place. Some people have loved it, some people have hated it, some people are really lukewarm about it. Definitely my most disappointing so far. Biggest surprise of 2023 so far. For that, I'm going to go to my reading list, which I need to talk about more anyways. I would say I kind of have 2 answers to this question. First one would be Fever Dream by George R.R. Martin. I have never had a desire to read George R.R. Martin, and all I knew about him was that he wrote Game of Thrones. But turns out, I think I learned this on Instagram, if I remember correctly, he also wrote a vampire book. And if you know me, you know I got a thing about vampires. I'm always trying to find a different way that the vampire story is told. So I picked up Fever Dream, which is a historical fiction kind of horror about vampires in the bayou of Louisiana and steamboats, and this guy has a steamboat and he's paid to just take this mysterious man wherever he wants to go, and the vampires have like different ideas of how things should go, and someone has made a drink to kind of, it's kind of like a vegan vampire situation, but not nearly as poorly done as Twilight. And I really enjoyed it. There were some issues I had with the way that race was depicted, and I don't feel I'm the person to be having that conversation, but when using racial slurs that no one should be using, there does, into the conversation at some point, there comes this idea of historical accuracy, which I have mixed feelings about. In some ways, it's like, yeah, it would be very historically accurate to include those words, but also, should we be including those words at this point in time? I don't know. I'm not really the person to have that conversation, but that did make me a little uncomfortable. However, I do think the story was really well done. I had a good time. I'm still never going to read Game of Thrones, but I was surprised by just how much I loved this book, considering I thought I would never read the author. My other big surprise would be Brother by, I believe it's Anya Alborn. This one, this year I've been following Reading with Meg, and she does a lot of extreme horror stuff, and Brother is like her favorite book of all time. And I've been hearing things about this book, and she finally pushed me over the edge, and I'm like, okay, I'll read it. I had read The Shuddering previously, which was good. I had a good time. Not my favorite book by any means, but like, I had a good time with it. So I went ahead and picked up Brother, and for most of Brother, I'm like, this is interesting enough, but I'm getting a little bored. But it's kind of interesting, but I'm a little bored. I don't know, but I felt like I could finish the book. And then the very last page gave me so many emotions, and I was so close to throwing the book across the room. I was so close that I was laying in bed with my husband and our youngest cat at the time, and I didn't throw the book, but I did like slam the book down on the bed, and my cat, who is already very anxious, just flew off the bed, and we couldn't get him to come back to bed with us for a good hour or two. I was so upset by that ending, but like in a good way. You know, if an author can get that much emotion out of you, that can be kind of a good thing. So that was also a big surprise. With how the book was going, I'm like, this is fine. And then the way the book ended, I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. You're horrible. I will continue to read you. So those are going to be my two biggest surprises so far this year. Favorite new to you author? I would probably have to go with Uthoff Rum. So I did read A Woman Is No Man this year. I pre-ordered Evil Eye, so clearly she's on my mind. She's a big favorite. Also, Tiffany D. Jackson, because I did read The Weight of Blood, which is my favorite book of the year so far, and I read Monday's Not Coming, which was also phenomenal. Newest fictional crush? Not answering that, because I don't get fictional crushes. Maybe on movies I'll get fictional crushes, but when it comes to books, like, I don't have a crush on a book character. It's just not my thing. I don't know. I've never been that person. Books that made you cry. I did cry a couple of times this year. I'm trying to remember what it was. Silence of the Lambs. I know I cried at least once during Silence of the Lambs, which you wouldn't think so, because when you think of that movie, you think of the horror element. But something that the movie was really missing was the main detective's, not Clarice, the guy she works with, his home life was missing from the movie. And in the book, his wife has been dying for a while now. Like, you know she's gonna die during the span of the book, and she does. And the chapter where it happens, it brought a lot back for me from the end of last year, having experienced that. And most days I'm fine, some days I'm just not. And reading that chapter, it was very accurately done. It was very well done. So, did cry during that. Not going to cry now. Most beautiful book you bought this year. I did recently film a video going through books that I bought after Vegas. I don't know if that's coming out before or after this video, but I will include some footage from that here. I have not read Priory of the Orange Tree, but it keeps catching my eye because the cover is gorgeous and the story sounds interesting. It's like, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. And then Illumicrate was selling just those editions, like you didn't have to buy the Illumicrate subscription, you could just get the duology on its own. I wish they were signed. For how much money they cost, they probably should have been signed, but regardless, they're beautiful. So I'm going to show off a little bit. This is my copy of Priory of the Orange Tree. You've got the sprayed edges. It includes a bookmark that's attached. You've got some gorgeous end pages. Some really great illustrations, and then the whole outside of the book is also art, and it's got some of that gold foil on it. So beautiful. I have no idea when I'm going to read these. I have a couple of chunky fantasy books that I've been meaning to read, and I keep thinking that winter is the perfect time to cozy up with a really big fantasy book, and then I end up spending winter reading classics instead. But one of these months here soon, I am going to get to both of these. Then we have A Day of Fallen Night, also a gorgeous book cover. Kudos to whoever designed these, like the original book covers and the Illumicrate book covers, because they're gorgeous. This one also has a bookmark. This one, I think the end pages are both the same in this one. I haven't really noticed if they're the same in the other one. And then we have another beautiful hardback. Last two questions I'm going to combine. What are the books you need to read by the end of the year, and what are your reading plans for the rest of 2023? So if you recall, I believe it was the beginning of this year, I did a look at my TBR, the oldest books on my TBR, stuff that I've been wanting to get to for a while, and my goal was to have less than 10 physical books on my TBR. That is not going to happen with how many books I bought in Vegas. I highly doubt I'm going to get to under 10 physical books on my TBR. So I have kind of altered that to the books that I started out the year with on my physical TBR. I want less than 10 of those. And for that, I think I'm doing pretty well. I have a page in my planner here that I'm using to kind of track some of that. I'm including whether or not I've read it, if I ended up DNFing it or getting rid of it, star ratings. So the beginning of this list is my older TBR, and then the end of the list is like my newer TBR. So I still have to read What White People Can Do Next, The Last of the Butterflies, Pleasure Activism, The Gate to Women's Country, Homebody, XX, The Uses of Enchantment. Haunting of Gillespie House and Haunting of Rookwood House aren't that old. They're from, I think, the end of last year, so they're not terribly old. Female Eunuch. I think that's it for my older books. So yeah, that's 10 books, and then I'm rereading Homeworld, and then I'm going to read Revolution World, so I got both of those from the author for review. I don't actually know if it's Philip Ginn or Philip Ginn. I need to email him and ask. But that puts me up to 11, because I've read Homeworld before. I just want to reread it before I read the sequel. So I'm actually doing really well on that. So if I read 1 or 2 more books, I will have hit my goal, and then I can do a stretch goal of cutting down the newer books on my TBR. But that's going to be a whole project. Like, I'm still working on that. That is my big goal for the rest of the year. Also, as I said, my book count is not entirely accurate right now because I think I need to update some things, but it'll be updated on the stuff, the planner things that I picture here. But I'm sitting at about 50 or 60 books for this year, and I did do a goal of 100 now that I have just the one job that I'm working. Monday through Friday, not including federal holidays. Like, I have downtime. I have time to spend on my hobbies, like gardening, making my resin bookmarks, reading, watching TV shows. Like, I feel like I can really enjoy myself now. So I think I'm gonna read more than 100 books this year. We'll see. But that is going to be it for this mid-year book freak out tag. I'm not freaking out too much. Also, I had a saving money goal for this year, which I'm doing okay with. I don't have a ton of money saved at the moment, but I've been able to save for things that I need, like my hysterectomy, like my colonoscopy that I just did. Don't say I'm too young for a colonoscopy. This is like the 8th one I had. I have health issues. They're going really well right now, actually. But anyways, also saving money for travel and potentially saving money for moving into a house that we own sometime down the road. But part of my saving for travel was saving for Vegas. And I spent a lot of money in Vegas and after Vegas. So I am going to go ahead and tell you, I have been tracking my book-specific spending from January 1st. And between January 1st and today, which is July 4th, happy July 4th if you celebrate, I have spent some money. I had people on Instagram make a guess. No one was anywhere close. They both guessed within like the $500 range. My friend was the closest, but she made a mistake. I had a close friend guess that I spent $1,250 roughly. But with that, she was including my husband's book purchases, which is incorrect. With his book purchases, we'd have several $100s more. But on my own, between January 1st and July 4th, drumroll, I have spent $1,295.05. Some of that is including sales tax. I have a problem, but that's why I have this channel. So that is going to be it from me. If you want to keep up with the rest of this chaos, I have my links down below. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.